Right, joined now by the fabulous Mike Yardley from Newsmakers. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm very well, Megan. I'm normally not awake at this time of day.
I know,
this
it's tough
is a major
for you.
shock. Yes.
But it's lovely to have you here and sitting on a nice relaxed couch. It's different, isn't it?
Far more comfortable than our set. I think we might have to do a job swap.
Yeah, I think you should actually. You should bring some couches into Newsmakers and you can just lounge around on them. It would be great.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is my chance to actually ask you some questions, and I did want to ask you a quick question about the show last night. You were talking about the new, in the news last week, the possibly some of the new ideas that are going forward for the inner city.
Sure.
With the Dutch designer and things like that. Was he Dutch? I think he was.
Yes, Danish.
Danish, sorry.
Yes, just up the road.
Just up the road.
Yeah.
One of them, of course, closing off Colombo Street right through and making it cyclists and pedestrians. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not convinced about that. And interestingly, Dave Henderson, who has enjoyed a lot of favour from the City Council in the last couple of years, has come out strongly against the key thrust to the City Council's plans for the CBD, which is a really interesting division between Henderson and the council.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they have shared a lot of joint visions together. But yeah, Dave very much is of the belief that the car will always be king in Christchurch, and any council that tries to ignore that is in La La Land. So I actually think this could well be shaping up to be a very interesting local body election issue. Do we want to kick cars out of Christchurch or not?
Exactly. This is, and you're right. I mean, there's other cities all around the world which are pedestrianised and it works well.
Yeah.
But Dave obviously doesn't think it's going to work well for us.
No, and he seems to think, and I think a lot of Christchurch people would agree with this, that for better or worse, it's part of our culture. We just love our cars. And sure, we can be encouraged to take the bus and bike a bit more, but the car is always going to be in the garage, isn't it? Very handy, very easy to use.
Do you cycle at all?
Well,
around the city?
Occasionally. Occasionally. I was a cycle nut when I was a kid. Loved it. But yeah, to be honest, I probably should do more cycling than I do, Megan.
Okay, that could be something we'll catch up with you and see how you're going in that later on in the year. Now, the Newsmakers Extra Edition, of course, tomorrow night here on CTV at 8:30, and it's all in the lead up to the local body elections.
Well, absolutely, because 2010 is the local body election year for Canterbury. We are going to kick off our series of lead-in discussions on the election with 3 city councillors tomorrow night. And
so who are we chatting to tomorrow night?
Tomorrow we've got councillors Barry Corbett, Yani Johanson and Ngaire Button. Interestingly, Ngaire Button makes some pretty strident comments about buses on the show tomorrow night. You may have heard the term loser cruiser.
I just heard that 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Finally I'm getting with the programme.
Well, I don't know if Ngaire Button will be pleased she did this during the show, but she actually backed that up as a fair perception of buses.
Interesting.
So Bob won't be happy with Ngaire.
No.
So yeah, that's tomorrow night, and we do actually ask those 3 city councillors to define what they think are going to be the make or break issues for the local body election in October.
Okay.
So some interesting comments on that.
Should we have a look, Barry Corbett, about some of the things that he was talking about? Here's the wee clip for you now.
I want to get your thoughts, first of all, on light rail, because the Mayor has certainly nailed his colours to the mast on light rail. He wants it to form the basis of our future public transport system. Would you agree, and is it realistic? Barry?
Yeah, I think it is realistic. It's something that's a long way ahead of us. But then I remember back to the 1970s when I was in radio in Auckland, and Dove Meyer Robinson was going on about rail transport, and everybody rubbished him. Now, 30 years later, they say, if only we'd listened back in those days. So I think it's the type of thing that you look into the future, and I don't think he's expecting to have a huge light rail system up and running by November this year. I think it's quite a few years away, but we've got to start looking at it. And what I would like us to look at is that we've got a railway line that goes from down south all the way right next to AMI Stadium. Wouldn't it be good to use part of that for a light rail system leading up to the Rugby World Cup just as a trial? And it will show how well it will work.
And of course, rail transport is another huge issue again, isn't it?
Very much so. I suspect that one of the reasons we've seen the Mayor so keen to cannibalise ECAN in the last few weeks is because the Christchurch City Council would love to have complete autonomy over public transport in Canterbury. At the moment, they share that responsibility with ECAN. So if they can knock ECAN out of the way and have full responsibility for public transport, it would make Bob's train set idea for Christchurch probably a lot easier to bring into place.
Now, speaking of Bob and the likes, what do we think is going to happen in October?
Well, it's a very interesting time of the year. Beware the Ides of March, because it is traditionally in March that would-be politicians and candidates firm up their intentions for the October election. So you've probably heard on the rumour mill, on the grapevine around Christchurch, which is a very productive form of communication, all sorts of names being bandied about. Fully expect a number of mayoral candidates to declare their hand in the next couple of weeks. One name that you should keep an eye out for is Mark Alexander. Right. Former National MP, who is definitely standing for council. He is yet to confirm whether it will be for a council position or the mayoralty.
Interesting.
But that is going to be a very interesting factor in this race. Jo Kane, of course, staying mum at the moment, but she is likely to confirm her intentions in the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure there'll be a few more names to add to the mix as well.
Oh gosh, it's getting very exciting, isn't it, Mike? Thank you so much. We'll keep having a catch up with you on this, I think, because some really good news and information there. And of course, don't forget for that full show, the Newsmakers Extra Edition with Mike here on CTV tomorrow night at 8:30. Don't miss it. Thank you very much, Mike.
Cheers, mate.
Now,